What is the reality that the players on the right can resurrect themselves from this deal with the devil? That anything can get done in this state of play? Let's ask one of the few who is still trying. Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thank you very much for taking this opportunity.
You bet. Good to be with you.
And I mean that because you are so very much in demand. If you had a horn coming out of the middle of your head and wings on your back, you would not be more of a rare specimen right now, which is a conservative who is not getting thrown under the bus, who does not believe in the big lie and holds office in the U.S. Congress. How does that make you feel?
Well, it's you feel a little alone sometimes, but you also feel at peace. I mean, one of the good things about this moment is just, I never thought I'd be in this position. I always thought, when it came down to defending the Constitution and telling the truth, there'd be a lot of us. But the thing is, I can sleep at night. That's what matters. I mean, it puts you in a tough place, but being able to know you're doing the best with the moment you have is worth really more than gold.
How much of you, in the middle of living in Aesop's fable of the death of ideals, tells you, I'm a young guy. I got my whole future in front of me. I got to get the hell out of here. This game is broken, and they're going to break me next. I got to get out of here. How much of you are thinking that way?
You have a lot of emotions that tug at you in this business, especially in this kind of moment. But, look, I've always known that I'm going to have a life after politics. It's one of the advantages of getting in young. You don't really see that as your end state. And I think that also really gives you the courage to say, look, there's going to be a life after politics, so I'm going to do the right thing. And, but yeah, I mean, there's always temptation, but that's where you got to look day to day, day by day, and you manage, where can you make a difference? Where can you have an impact? And I mean, coming on your show and talking to people is making an impact, even if it, takes a while to do it, even if it's something that, I'm the only one out there saying the election was legitimate and Joe Biden's legitimately president. Somebody needs to. And we've had a lack of people doing that, unfortunately, on our side.
How do you explain it to yourself? They all know the truth. Maybe a few of them are so incurious that they're open to suggestion. But how do you explain this kind of capitulation, the Kevin McCarthy, who's at the head now, resembling Joe McCarthy as much as anybody else in terms of chasing people out because of their ideas of not wanting to tell a lie?
So I think some of it is cowardice. Some of it is people can rationalize in their own mind, look, if I speak out, I'm not going to make a personal difference, but I need to survive so I can make an impact on healthcare or whatever legislation they have. And I can understand that line of thinking. But, when it comes down to this Constitution, when it comes down to the insurrection that was a whole 4 months ago, my goodness, how are we still talking about it? Like, this is the kind of thing that isn't about staying in office to affect healthcare. This is really the basic function of our job. If we do nothing else in a year, as long as we're defending the Constitution, the Republic will survive. And in fact, I represent, over 700,000 people. I'm the only person in my district that has to swear an oath in this capacity to defend the Constitution. I don't have to swear an oath to my party, to conservatism, to liberalism. I swear to the Constitution. So that's what I think our top priority has to be. And sadly, I think some people, it's really become about the culture war, owning the libs, or whatever the division is of the day.
You say we. Your problem is it's just me. There is no we. And you make a good point. I don't know how the men and women in your party who are going along with this justify that as anything other than a breach of oath. Can they?
I'm sure in their mind they can. And look, I think there are people that legitimately, maybe believe they're doing the right thing by kind of staying quiet at this moment. I won't begrudge them, but there's a lot of people.
Why won't you begrudge them?
Well, just because, everybody has their own train of thinking. I mean, I think everybody gets into this business to do the right thing, whether you're on the right or left. I think a lot of people think they're doing the right thing.
How can this be the right thing?
I mean, again, look, I just can't speak for their line of thinking. I think the line of thinking may go, I'm going to be quiet so I can make an impact in this area. But my broader point is, this is that moment where defending the Constitution Things like saying, I heard some of my colleagues today imply that January 6th really wasn't what it was, or that Ashley Babbitt, for instance, was murdered. Well, she actually, by the way, was about to breach onto the floor where there were almost 100 members of Congress still vulnerable. The reality was a really violent day. We can't wash past it. We can't just move on. The only time we can move on as a party is if we come to full grips with what we did, what we caused, and what we allowed to happen. Then we can move on. Short of that, if you got to pretend like January 6th didn't happen and maybe the election was illegitimate, you're lying, and lies and truth cannot coexist. That's a basic biblical foundation.
What is the chance of any future, of any type of cooperation between whatever your party now is, because it ain't the grand old party anymore? I don't know what it is in its new iteration. You'll have to come up with a name. What's the chance that they do anything with the Biden administration after McConnell just said, I'm not here to help him. I want him out?
Yeah, I don't know. It's disappointing. Look, I think there are areas we can work together. I do think there's a little light for infrastructure. It's something that, for me personally, I've been calling for since I've been in Congress. We have a chance to do something in a bipartisan way. There's a lot of bipartisan stuff that gets done kind of daily anyway, for instance, on my committee. But everybody does bring up a broader point. And this is one area where I'm going to say it really does exist on both sides in this, which is people look at every issue and say, how can we turn that into an election victory? The problem is we have an election every 2 years, and we're always in an election cycle. So the democracy will survive, but it's not even so much people like me that are going to save it or that are going to, be responsible for tanking it. It's the American people that have to demand better of their legislators. And by the way, you got to vote in a primary. You may not want to vote in a primary, but in many districts, most districts, primary is going to determine who your representative is.
Well, in your party, they vote in the primaries. They're just going to vote the way Trump tells them. And that's the problem. Let me ask you, do you still believe there is a chance in this political system to go beyond left and right and to do what is reasonable?
Yeah, I certainly do. And I believe that because, the old saying, I think it was attributed to Churchill, which is Americans can always be counted on to do the right thing after they've exhausted all other options. We have a great history of coming from dark times and doing better things. And I cannot believe that we'll be the first generation that will leave the next generation a country worse off. I talk to young people, people younger than me, millennials and Zers, that I think when they take power have learned how to actually disagree with each other and change that system. And I think they're generally more optimistic. They're not ingrained in the old battles we are. So is it going to happen soon? I don't know. Today made me a little more pessimistic. But I think ultimately we'll survive. The Republican Party will come back because if there's only two parties, they have to represent half the country. But there may be some damage done to the party and to the brand prior to that because there already has been.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, I respect your optimism. And it's not empty because you're doing the work to make it real. And I wish you good luck.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.